The remote and largely uncharted planet of Zephyria was notorious for its inhospitable environment, characterized by steep black cliffs and swirling toxic sandstorms. In the heart of this unwelcoming landscape, the wreckage of a small exploration vessel lay scattered across a jagged ravine. The ship, which had belonged to the Luminar, a race known for their sleek designs and advanced technology, was now little more than a charred skeleton. Inside the remains of the cockpit, Nyara, the pilot, struggled against the remnants of her restraints. Her body ached with deep, throbbing pain from multiple injuries, and her scales, usually a vibrant shade of purple, were dulled by dust and singed by fire. The crash had left her disoriented, and her mind spun as she tried to recall the sequence of events that led to her dire situation. As Nyara finally freed herself from the wreckage, the reality of her situation dawned on her. She was alone, stranded on a hostile planet with no means of communication. Her ship's emergency beacon, which should have activated automatically, lay in ruins beside her. She knew the chances of rescue were slim. Zephyria was off the usual trade routes and seldom visited due to its perilous conditions. Crawling from the debris, Nyara managed to stand, leaning heavily against the twisted metal of her ship. She surveyed her surroundings. Towering cliffs cast long shadows over the ravine, and in the distance, a storm was gathering, its dark clouds swirling ominously. Nyara understood that if she remained by the wreckage, she would not survive the night. With considerable effort, she began to walk, her limbs shaky and her vision blurred. Every step was agony, and the winds began to whip violently, throwing sand against her wounds. Yet, driven by an innate survival instinct, Nyara pressed on. She needed to find shelter before the storm hit in full force. As night fell, the temperature dropped rapidly, the cold seeping into Nyara's bones, a stark contrast to the heat of the day. She found a narrow crevice between two large rocks and wedged herself inside, hoping to shield herself from the wind and the biting cold. Her mind drifted to thoughts of her people and the mission that had brought her so far from home. Tears mixed with the dirt on her cheeks as she realized she might never see them again. Aeron's ship, the Star Explorer, was a sleek and nimble vessel, perfectly suited for the kind of solo reconnaissance missions he often undertook. As he piloted the craft through the thick clouds of Zephyria's upper atmosphere, his eyes were fixed on the readouts flickering across his dashboard. The signal he had detected was weak and intermittent, suggesting whatever had emitted it was either badly damaged or barely operational. The descent through the planet's turbulent atmosphere was rough. Winds buffeted the Star Explorer, and Aeron had to wrestle with the controls to maintain a steady course. As he broke through the last of the cloud cover, his sensors finally locked onto the source of the signal, the smoldering remains of an alien vessel scattered across a ravine. Aeron circled the site, his expert eyes scanning for signs of life. It was then he spotted a lone figure staggering through the desolate landscape. He couldn't believe it. Survivors were rare in crashes this severe. He made the decision then and there to attempt a rescue, no matter the risk. Protocol dictated caution when interacting with unknown species, but Aeron's moral compass pointed firmly towards helping those in need. Lowering the Star Explorer onto a relatively stable patch of ground a safe distance from the wreckage, Aeron prepared himself. He donned his environmental suit, equipped with its own life support and communication systems, and grabbed his medical kit. The kit was stocked with an array of tools and medications engineered to be compatible with a wide variety of biological systems, a necessity in the unpredictable frontier of space. As Aeron approached, he observed the alien more closely. She was clearly injured, her movements sluggish and pained. He noticed the unique shimmer of her scales, an iridescent purple that even in her weakened state glowed faintly under the light of the planet's twin moons. "Hey, it's okay. I'm here to help," Aeron called out as he drew closer, his voice muffled by his helmet. He knew she might not understand his words, but he hoped his tone would convey his intent. The alien turned towards him, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and confusion. She tried to back away, but her injuries hindered her, and she stumbled. Reacting quickly, Aeron reached out to steady her, his hand gently grasping her arm. "I'm not going to hurt you," he reassured, pulling out a scanner from his kit to assess her injuries. The device emitted a soft humming sound as it analyzed her condition, providing Aeron with vital information about her physiology and the extent of her injuries. With the data collected, Aeron began administering first aid. He applied biofoam to seal and disinfect wounds, injected painkillers, and wrapped thermal blankets around her to combat shock. All the while, he remained acutely aware of her reactions, ready to pull back at the slightest sign of distress. As he worked, Aeron continued to speak in a calm, soothing tone, explaining each step as best he could. "You're going to be okay," he said, hoping his voice conveyed the sincerity of his words. "I've got you." With the immediate medical care administered, he helped her back to his ship. The journey was slow and fraught with difficulty, but eventually they reached the safety of the Star Explorer. As Aeron helped her into the cabin and secured her in one of the seats, he glanced back at the ravine, the winds howling around them, a stark reminder of the planet's hostility. Inside the ship, as the doors sealed shut, the alien's tense posture slowly relaxed, her breaths becoming less labored. Aeron initiated the takeoff sequence, the engines of the Star Explorer coming to life with a gentle roar. Back aboard the Star Explorer, Aeron monitored their ascent from the hostile surface of Zephyria, ensuring they cleared the planet's turbulent atmosphere safely. As the ship stabilized in orbit, he turned his attention to the alien he had rescued. She was resting, still weak, but now in a stable condition thanks to the ship's medical facilities. Aeron's ship was equipped with a basic translator module designed to facilitate communication between different species through an analysis of language patterns. It wasn't perfect, especially with less common languages, but it would suffice in this situation. Slowly, the alien introduced herself. Her name was Nyara, and she was of the Luminar race. Aeron introduced himself as well, and gently asked for more information about the crash. Nyara hesitated, then began to recount. "I was surveying an asteroid belt," she said, her voice faltering as the pain of the memory was evident in her expression. "Everything seemed normal, then suddenly my ship's systems crashed. I lost control and fell." Aeron nodded, understanding the difficulty of recounting such an experience. "I'm sorry that happened. We're heading to the nearest space station. They have better medical facilities and can help us figure out what caused your crash." As the journey progressed, the initial awkwardness gave way to a cautious rapport. Aeron showed Nyara around the ship, explaining its various functionalities. In return, Nyara shared bits and pieces about her culture and her mission. As they prepared for their arrival, Aeron contacted the station, requesting medical support and clearance for docking. "Once we're docked, I'll stay with you," he assured Nyara, who looked apprehensive about what awaited her. "We'll figure this out together." Nyara nodded, grateful for the support. As the station's docking clamp secured the Star Explorer, she took a deep breath, ready to face whatever challenges came next with a newfound ally by her side. The docking process was smooth, a testament to the efficiency of the space station personnel. As Aeron and Nyara disembarked, they were met by a waiting medical team. Aeron's initial interventions and his observations were corroborated by the medical team's findings. Nyara, though initially overwhelmed by the flurry of activity and the alien technology, gradually relaxed. The medical staff communicated through the translator, explaining their actions to ensure she was comfortable. They administered treatments that were specifically tailored to her biology, complex compounds that accelerated tissue regeneration, and nanites that aided cellular repair. Watching the care they provided, Nyara voiced her suspicions. "Could someone have done this deliberately?" she asked, her own suspicions now reignited by the recollection of the events. "Yes, I'd like to investigate that," said Aeron. "I need to know if someone caused this." With a plan forming, Aeron contacted the station's security office to arrange a visit to the crash site. While waiting for approval, he and Nyara discussed their next steps. The conversation was interrupted by a call from the station's commander, inviting them to a meeting to discuss their findings and the implications of their situation. Aeron looked at Nyara, seeing her determination, and nodded. Together, they were resolved to uncover what had happened. In the meeting room, station engineers analyzed the data recovered from Nyara's ship. The information flickering across the screens showed anomalies that suggested external interference. There were erratic patterns and sudden drops in system functionality that were hard to explain as mere equipment failure. Aeron stepped forward, pointing to a specific spike in the data. "This here looks like a remote access attempt," he said. "Someone might have tried to take control of the ship's systems." The room buzzed with murmurs from the staff as the implications of such an act were severe. Sabotage in space, especially in uncharted regions, was an extremely dangerous and illegal act. Commander Ellis frowned as she looked at the screen. "This is a serious allegation, Aeron. If true, this wasn't just an accident, but a deliberate attack." Nyara nervously scratched her scales as she tried to process this information. "But why? Why target me?" "That's what we need to find out," Aeron said determinedly. "Commander Ellis, can you provide us with a team to investigate the crash site more thoroughly?" Ellis nodded. "Absolutely. I'll give you our best equipment and security personnel. We need to uncover the truth behind this incident." The following day, equipped with their new tools and accompanied by a security team, they set out for Zephyria. The journey back to the planet was tense, both aware of the dangers that might await them, not just from the planet's harsh environment, but from whoever had targeted Nyara's ship. Landing near the crash site, they proceeded with caution. The security team set up a perimeter while Aeron and Nyara began their investigation. Using the drones, they mapped the area, collecting fragments of the ship and soil samples. After hours of meticulous work, they made a significant discovery. Among the wreckage, they found a small device that seemed to have been planted on Nyara's ship. Aeron examined it, a worried expression on his face. "This is a signal jammer," he said. "It's designed to interfere with your ship's communication and navigation systems." "This was definitely no accident, Nyara. Someone wanted to bring you down." A holographic display showed a detailed image of the device. Nyara, standing beside Aeron, felt a chill run through her. The realization that someone had gone to such lengths to target her was both frightening and infuriating. She clenched her fists, her resolve strengthening. "We need to trace where this device came from," Nyara said. "There must be a trail." Aeron nodded in agreement, turning to Commander Ellis. "Commander, can we access trade logs and shipping manifests? Perhaps there's a record of this device being transported." Ellis authorized their request immediately, granting them full access to the station's databases. Aeron and Nyara spent hours combing through the records, trying not to miss even the smallest clue. Finally, Aeron found something. "Look," he said, pointing to a series of entries. "Components for this device were brought into this sector a few months ago. The shipping company... interesting. They often did runs for a mysterious and powerful client." Nyara frowned. "Can we identify this client?" "Not directly," said Aeron, "but this gives us a starting point. We should head to a nearby trading hub and do some digging." The pair set off from Zephyria, heading to the nearby Nova trading station. Here, they split up to gather information from the locals. Using a mixture of charm and a bit of coercion, Aeron extracted useful information from a dock manager. The shipment had arrived months ago, carried by a freighter that often did runs for a mysterious and powerful client. Meanwhile, Nyara used her Luminar authority to intimidate and persuade the market vendors. One nervous trader finally cracked, revealing that he'd seen similar devices sold to a known mercenary group. Reuniting to share their findings, Aeron and Nyara realized their clues led them to their next target, the infamous Black Star mercenary group. After days of tracking and planning, they staged a raid on Black Star's secret base. The operation was swift and precise. Zoran, the leader of the mercenaries known for his ruthlessness, bound and disarmed, was not so intimidating now. "Who hired you?" Nyara demanded, her gaze piercing the Vexen. Zoran sneered, then realizing his position, he divulged the name of a corporation, a powerful entity with investments in pioneering technologies. They wanted Nyara's mission to fail, to prevent her from claiming a resource-rich asteroid belt she had been surveying. With the mercenaries captured and the conspirators' identity revealed, Aeron and Nyara knew their next move. They needed to confront the corporation and bring them to justice. Nova Corp's headquarters was a towering structure of glass and steel dominating the cityscape. Inside, the atmosphere was coldly professional, with security checkpoints at every entry and surveillance drones hovering at strategic points. Aeron and Nyara, along with their team, managed to secure a meeting with Nova Corp's executive board under the guise of discussing potential business opportunities. As they entered the boardroom, they were greeted with polite nods. Aeron began, "Ladies and gentlemen, we bring before you a very serious accusation." One of them, a woman with sharp features, stood up. "This is a serious allegation. If you have proof, we must discuss this internally. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding." Nyara stepped forward. "There's no misunderstanding. We demand transparency and accountability, or we take our evidence to the Galactic Council." An uneasy silence fell over the room. It was broken by the sudden sound of alarms. Nova Corp's security forces had been alerted to the confrontation and were rushing towards the meeting room. Aeron and Nyara sprang into action, implementing their escape plan with their team. After an adrenaline-fueled chase and struggle, they managed to escape the building with critical evidence in hand. With proof of Nova Corp's wrongdoing in hand, Aeron and Nyara prepared for the next crucial step, presenting their case to the Galactic Council. As they journeyed towards the Council's headquarters, located on the neutral planet of Orania, they were acutely aware of the gravity of their mission. The Galactic Council was the governing body responsible for maintaining peace and order among the various species of the galaxy. Its decisions carried immense weight, and its judgments could shape the course of entire civilizations. They presented their case before the Council, showing their evidence and testifying. Hours of deliberation followed, as the implications of their actions hung in the balance. Finally, a decision was reached. The Council ruled unanimously in favor of Aeron and Nyara, condemning Nova Corp for their unlawful actions and imposing severe sanctions on the corporation. Assets were frozen, executives were arrested, and Nova Corp was barred from participating in any further interstellar trade or commerce. The verdict was met with a mix of relief and satisfaction from Aeron and Nyara. Justice had been served, and the integrity of galactic society had been preserved. The story ends with Aeron and Nyara parting ways. They exchanged farewells amidst a bustling crowd of travelers and traders, their ship, the Star Explorer, waiting on the docking bay, ready to carry them towards their separate destinies. "I don't know how to thank you enough, Aeron," Nyara said, her voice tinged with emotion. "Without your help, I would not have survived, let alone uncovered the truth about Nova Corp." Aeron smiled, a warmth in his eyes. "You don't need to thank me, Nyara. Helping you was the right thing to do. Besides, you taught me a thing or two about courage and perseverance." As they said their goodbyes, both knew that this experience had changed them forever. A new friendship and mutual understanding had been forged. Nyara looked back one last time as she boarded the ship. "Maybe our paths will cross again someday," she said. Aeron nodded. "The galaxy may be vast, but our paths crossed for a reason. Who knows, they might cross again." As the engines of the Star Explorer fired up, both looked to the future, filled with anticipation of new adventures, discoveries, and perhaps a reunion.